Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Where's Rudolph when you need him? I preached at Scotch Ridge Presbyterian Church at 6, and on the way over here I had to cut across Barnes Road, and then 647, and then up over there, Grange Hall. Well, I tell you what, the Lord was with me. I pray that everybody makes it home safely tonight, and that this fog doesn't do us in at all. But it's good to be here, gathered here to worship the Lord on this Christmas Eve. So welcome to everybody. This is the night of nights. This is the night that we celebrate Christ's birth, and we'll do that through singing the good old carols and lighting candles and the readings that we have and all the things that we want to share with you tonight. We think it's a wonderful time to celebrate Christ's birth and hear the good news once again, that good old story, the great story ever told. And you know what? That story really began long before Christ was born. There are promises throughout the entire Old Testament of the coming of Christ, and that's what we are going to share with you tonight. Those promises from long before Christ was born, all the way leading up until that night in Bethlehem. And so we're going to travel back to the book of Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and He separated the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and He called the darkness night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. Genesis 1 through 5.
My name is Eve. Life has become hard for Adam, our children, and me. We no longer live in the Garden of Eden. In the beginning, God created all things and gave us paradise where we lived in innocence. You know the sad story that followed. It's the story of human nature. We don't like being told what to do. God told us not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Every time we walked by that tree, we couldn't keep from wondering what would happen if we took a bite of that fruit. The serpent knew he wouldn't have to push us too hard to cross over the line and disobey God. When we tasted the fruit, our eyes were opened, and evil sank its fangs into our souls. The serpent's poison had infected us, and we were destined to struggle, suffer, and die. But when all hope seemed lost, God gave us that first Christmas promise. God said to the serpent, "And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel." This promise was puzzling. What did God mean? One day, one of my offspring, a son, would be born. In the conflict between the serpent and him, the serpent would strike his heel and cause him to suffer, but he would crush the serpent's head. The victory would belong to the Son. He would destroy the serpent's power of death over humankind. That is our hope. One day, the Son will come and ransom us from sin's penalty.
You may remain seated while we sing, O come, Emmanuel."
That
was corrupt in God's sight and full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, I'm going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I'm surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood. Make rooms in it and coat it with pitch, inside and out. Genesis 6, 11 through 14.
My name is Noah, and I want to share the next great promise with you. I lived in a time of corruption and violence, and the rebellion of human beings against God that began in the Garden of Eden continued as the population of mankind spread around the world. What is wrong with us? What is it within our human nature that causes us to spiral downward into hatred and violence? We don't have to choose darkness and evil. We can choose the path of God's love and light. Instead, the world I live in went in the opposite direction. The corruption and the violence were so terrible that God's only option was to start over. I am humbled that God called me and my family to begin again. We went to work. We built the ark, and we gathered the animals. And the rains came for 40 days and 40 nights, and the waters rose and destroyed the whole world. Now, the waters have receded, and we are ready to start again. This time, we start with a promise. Do you see the rainbow? It is the sign of God's promise to never destroy the world again by a flood. That promise raises the question, does this mean that mankind will never spiral down into corruption and violence again? That is doubtful. Our human nature hasn't changed. Perhaps this rainbow promise is about God providing another kind of ark for our salvation, one that would deliver and save people of every color, of every culture, and every nation. One day, God is going to send an ark of grace into our dark and violent world. Like the ark that I built, it will be made of beams, but in the form of a cross. Then joyful all the nations will rise and join the triumphs of the skies.
May remain seated as we sing, Hark the Herald Angels Sing.
Amen.
your father's household to the land that I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you.
My name is Sarah. God has given the world a wonderful promise through my husband Abraham and me. After the flood, the population of the world grew. God scattered humankind across the earth. Groups of people separated into many tribes and cultures with their own languages. But the behavior of the people did not improve. Just as before the flood, hate, violence, and injustice prevailed. But this time, God was not going to destroy the world again. God had a different plan that offered a new hope. Instead of destroying them, God would bless the nations of the world. How? It started with a promise. God told us to leave our own country and people and go to a land where our offspring would grow into a great nation. In this land, we would become a blessing to all peoples on earth. These words from God were not easy to embrace. To leave our country and relatives meant that we would be on our own, exposed to the wickedness in the world. Besides, Abraham and I were unable to have children. How could an older couple who could not conceive produce one child, let alone a nation? This journey to a faraway land required great faith and hope. We kept putting one foot in front of the other. We discovered that what is impossible with man is possible with God. In our old age, we conceived a son. His name is Isaac. Sometimes in the evening when we sit around the fire, we talk about this great promise. How will God bless all the peoples of the earth through us? Time will pass. The next generation will come, then the next. Eventually our family will multiply and become a nation. But then what? In my mind, I see a great light. Through this nation, God will shine a great light into this dark world. Then all the nations of the world will come and adore the one who shines forth God's light.
Let us stand and sing, O come, all ye faithful.
Amen.
Then Moses went up to God, and the Lord called to him from the mountain and said, "This is what you are to say to the descendants of Jacob, what you are to tell the people of Israel. You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt, and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now, if you obey me fully, keep my covenant, then out of all the nations you will be my treasured possession. Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words you are to speak to the Israelites." Exodus 19, 3 through 6.
My name is Miriam. I am a prophet and the sister of Moses. As God promised, Abraham and Sarah's children multiplied and became a great people in the land of Egypt. However, the Pharaoh feared their numbers and turned them into slaves. I helped my brother lead the Israelites out of Egypt. Our job was to lead them through the wilderness to the promised land, the land God gave to Father Abraham and his descendants. There, the Israelites will become a great nation, and the whole world will be blessed through them. During our journey, I often wondered how God could bless the whole world through such a rebellious people. The Israelites constantly complained about lack of food, lack of water, and difficult conditions. Many carried with them the idols of Egypt. Their willingness to worship false gods led them astray. Then God called Moses to climb Mount Sinai to receive a new promise. God would refine the Israelites into faithful servants. He would do this by making them an example to the world through God's law, the commandments. God gave Moses stone tablets containing the laws of God. After 40 days, he descended the mountain to present to the Israelites the promise of the law. When Moses arrived at the Israelite camp, he discovered the people had pressured Aaron into fashioning an idol of a golden calf. They were eating, drinking, and reveling as they worshiped the idol. Moses became so angry that he threw the stone tablets down, breaking them into pieces. Will God destroy these people or forgive them? What about God's law? Will the law provide the instructions to offer a sacrifice for their sins? On the night of the first Passover, a lamb was sacrificed for our salvation and deliverance from Egypt. The angel of the Lord passed over the houses that were marked with the blood of the lamb. As we wander in this wilderness, I wonder, will God send another lamb to be the perfect sacrifice to fulfill the law?
You may remain seated as we sing, "I Wonder as I Wonder." shared this amazing promise from God with King David. When your days are over and you rest with your ancestors, I will raise up your offspring to succeed you, your own flesh and blood, and I will establish his kingdom. He is the one who will build a house for my name. And I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be his father, and he will be my son. When he does wrong, I will punish him with a rod wielded by men, with floggings inflicted by human hands. But my love will never be taken away from him, as I took it away from Saul, whom I removed before you. Your house and your kingdom will endure forever. Your throne will be established forever. 2 Samuel 7, 12 through 16.
My name is King David. When I stand on the roof of my palace and look over the city of Jerusalem, I am amazed at all God has done. God has fulfilled the promise of turning Abraham's children into a great nation. God has fulfilled the promise of giving us a land flowing with milk and honey. Truly, the world will be blessed through this nation. When I look down and see the tabernacle, the tent of God, I am disturbed. How can I live in this beautiful palace of cedar when the ark of God remains in a tent? I told Nathan the prophet that I want to build a great temple in which God's presence could dwell. Nathan met with God and received God's word. He said, I am not the one God has called to build God's temple. Rather, one of my offspring will build the house of God. Then God gave me an amazing promise. One of my offspring will establish an eternal kingdom. God would be his father, and he would be God's son. Then Nathan said something that was hard to understand. This son would suffer beatings and punishment by men who believed he had done wrong. How could anybody dare harm this great king? Despite the suffering the Son of God would endure and live, God's love would never leave him. He would reign forever. My mind marvels at this great promise. What kind of king reigns forever? When will this child be born and establish his eternal kingdom?
You may remain seated as we sing, What Child Is This? himself will give you a sign. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and will call him Emmanuel. He will be eating curds and honey when he knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right. For before the boy knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right, the land of the two kings you dread will be laid waste. Isaiah 7:14 through 16.
My name is Isaiah. I am a prophet of Israel. It wasn't long after the reign of King David and his son, King Solomon, that division occurred. The nation of Israel was broken into two kingdoms. The kingdom of Israel to the north, with Samaria as its capital, and the kingdom of Judah to the south, with Jerusalem as its capital. The Assyrian Empire threatened to invade the northern kingdom. Judah's King Ahaz wondered if his army should join with the northern kingdom to fight against Assyria. God gave me a message for King Ahaz. Do not join with the northern kingdom. Assyria was God's instrument of punishment against Israel for rebelling against God. Then I received another terrible vision. The Babylonian Empire would be God's instrument to judge the southern kingdom. Everything would be destroyed. The city, the walls, and the temple. The land would be reduced to tree stumps. But then God gave me a sign of hope to share with King Ahaz. A virgin will conceive and give birth to a son. He shall be called Emmanuel, or God with us. He will sprout like a branch from one of these stumps, the stump of King David's father Jesse. This offspring of David will become an eternal king. His words will be wise and powerful and bring peace to the earth. The wolf will lie down with the lamb. The lion and the young animals will walk together, and a little child will lead them.
But you, O Bethlehem Ephratah, were too little to be among the clans of Judah. From you shall come one who is to be ruler in Israel, whose coming forth is from old, from ancient days. Therefore, he shall give them up until the time when she who is in labor has given birth. And the rest of his brothers shall return to the people of Israel, and he shall stand and shepherd his flock in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God. And they shall dwell secure. For now he shall be great to the ends of the earth, and he shall be their peace. Micah 5:2-5.
My name is Micah. I'm a prophet of God. My eyes have seen both disaster and hope. I have seen what my fellow prophet Isaiah saw, God's judgment against the northern kingdom of Israel by the hand of the Assyrian Empire, and God's judgment against the southern kingdom of Judah by the Babylonian Empire. Everything will be destroyed and burnt to the ground, the walls of Jerusalem knocked down and the temple flattened. But then God showed me something wonderful. From the ashes, a new Jerusalem will arise. From all the lands where the Israelites were scattered, they will return. The city and the temple will be rebuilt. Then one of the greatest promises in all Scripture will be fulfilled. The Messiah, the Son of God, will be born in the most unexpected place, the little town of Bethlehem. This will fulfill God's promise to David. A son from David's line will become the King of Kings. He will enter Jerusalem and establish an eternal kingdom.
You may remain seated as we sing, O Little Town of Bethlehem. God gave the prophet Daniel a strange vision. Daniel, I've now come to give you insight and understanding. As soon as you begin to pray, a word went out, which I have come to tell you. For you are highly esteemed, therefore consider the word and understand the vision. 77 are decreed for your people and your holy city, to finish transgression, to put an end to sin, and to atone for wickedness, to bring in everlasting seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy place. Know and understand this. From the time the word goes out to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until the anointed one, the ruler, comes, there will be 7 sevens and 62 sevens. It will be rebuilt with streets and a trench, and in times of trouble after the 62 sevens, the anointed one will be put to death and will have nothing. Daniel 9, 22 through 26.
My name is Daniel. I am Israel's prophet in Babylon, where we remain in captivity. God has given me many visions of the future. Our time of suffering in Babylon will soon come to an end. God has punished the people of Israel for all their sins. Soon Babylon will be defeated, and we will return to Jerusalem and rebuild the city and the temple. God will give us a new start. Today God gave me an amazing vision. Once Jerusalem and the temple are rebuilt, a number of years will pass before the Anointed One comes again. How many years? 7 times 7 plus 62 times 7. That makes almost 500 years. 500 years is a long time, but I will share this prophecy with the people of Israel to give them hope of the coming Messiah. I will also share it with the wise men of Babylon to pass on to future generations. They will know when the Son of God arrives. There is another sign when this day will come. In the book of Numbers you will find these words. I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star will come out of Jacob. A scepter will rise out of Israel. Wise men who study the night sky will recognize the star. They will remember my prophecy from this day. If they are truly wise, they will follow this star and bring gifts to the Anointed One.
In those days, Mary arose and went in haste into the hill country to a town in Judah. She entered the house of Zachariah and greeted Elizabeth. And when Elizabeth heard the greeting of Mary,